This isn't the Christmas tree. This is the Christmas finger.
Okay, I guess that's it. So yeah, we'll start reading. But first, I have to make a playlist for this book, and yes, I'll say FNAF. So I'm gonna start reading FNAF books, guys, and make a playlist for them. But first, thanks first. FNAF. The Silver Eyes. You might find yourself feeling short of breath, even when lying down. That's because when blood backs up in your pulmonary veins, fluid can leak into your lungs. Congestion in your lungs. So, yeah, guys. So I'm gonna put FNAF in parentheses, guys, and it will be. I have 3 books here, and each book I read with Freddy's will be like that. Well, technically, all 3 of these books are connected. All 3 are connected. Oh, well, we'll work on that. We'll figure out what I'm gonna do after that. 13 chapters in one book, and there's about 400 pages in each book, so better get going. So start reading chapter 1, and then we'll start. Now, each book will be on a playlist. This book will be on a playlist. The other books will have their own playlist, maybe. I don't know. Depends on if I like the book or not. Oh, I feel better. I hate these damn commercials. I don't care about my personal life. Like, shit. Okay, so here we go. The Silver Eyes.
Still here. Believe it or not, that's still here. Exciting, huh? Look at this.
Chapter 1. Here, see me, Chris. Charles dropped to her hand. Charlie dropped to her hands and knees. She wedged behind a row of arcade games. Apparent in the crawl space between the convicted plugs saw behind her. She was connected. The only way out was past the thing. She wasn't fast enough to make it. She could see him stalking back and forth, curdling, flickering of the movement through the grass between the games. There was a scare enough room to move, but she tried to crawl backwards. Her foot caught on the cord, stopping, compelling herself to casually dislodge it. She heard a crash of metal, and the fastest console rocked back against the wall. He hit against it, shuddering the display, then attacking the next, crashing against them. Almost ran the theater through the misery of coming closer. I have got to go. I have to go. I have to get out. I have to. The potentialing through was of no help. There were no way out. Her arm attached, and she wanted to sob around. Blood soaked through the tender bandages, and seemed as through she could feel it draining from her. The console, a few feet away, crushed against the wall, and Charlie flinched. He was getting closer. She should hear the grounding of the gears and cranking of servos, ever louder. Eyes closed, she could still see the way
He looked at her, see the matter, see her, see the matter fur, and exposed the metal behind the separate flesh. Suddenly, the console in front of her was winched away. It trapped over, thrown, thrown down like a toy. The power cords bent her hand and knees were yanked away, and Charlotte skipped, almost feeling that she caught herself, and looked up just in time to see the downward swing of a hook. Don't care about that crap on TV. I just use it for. Welcome to Hurricane, Utah. Charlotte smiled, waggling at the sign to keep diving. The world didn't look any different from one side of the sign to the other sign. Felt nervous, appealing as she passed it. She didn't recognize anything. Then she hidden really, expecting to not this far at the edge of town where it was all highway and empty space. She wondered what the other world looked like, where they were. 10 years ago, there was been best friend, and then it happened, and everything ended at last for Charlie. She didn't see anything of sense. She was 7 years old. They had written a they have written all the time at the kids, especially Marilyn, who wrote like she taken the first fast as interrupted, but as they got older, had they had grown apart. The letters have grown fewer and further between, and convented leadership to this trip had been professionally and full and of awkward parts. Charlie repeated their names through to herself that she still can remember their names. Marla, Jesse, Lamar, Clinton, John, and Michael. Michael was the reason for this trip. After all, it was 10 years since he died. 10 years since it happened. How it's professionally what would all together for the identity cemetery ceremony. They wanted all of the old friends. They wanted the Mannix to the scholarship. They were cheering in his name. Charlie knew it was a good thing to do, but the glitching still felt servo memory. She involved and turned down the air conditioning, even though she knew it was not the cold. As she dove into town center, Charlie began to recognize these things. A few stores and the movie theater, which was now advertising summer blockbusters hits. She felt a brief amount of surprise, then smiled at herself. What did you expect? The whole place would be uncharted, a monument to the memory of your departures, frozen forever in July 1985. Well, that is exactly what she expected. She looked at her watch. Still a few hours to kill before they all meet up. She thought about going to the movie, but she knew what she really wanted to do. Charlie made a left turn and headed out of town. 10 minutes later, she pulled out pulled to a stop and got out. The house loomed up before her, dark outside wound outlined the ward. In the bright blue sky, Charlie leaned back against the car, slightly dizzy. She took a moment to steady herself. With a deep breath, she had known it would be here. A little look through the aunt's black book. A few years before had told her that was paid off. The mortgage was paid off, and that Aunt June was still paying property tax. It has only been 10 years. There was no reason it should have changed at all. Charlie climbed into the steps slowly, taking into the peeling paint. The third star, the third, there's the third stair still had a loose board, and the rose bushes had taken over the side of the porch. Their beating hanging into the wood. The door was locked, but Charlie still had her key. She had never actually used it, and she took it from around her neck and slid into the lock. She remembered the first father put this chain around her neck in case she ever needed it. Well, she needs it now. The door opened easier, and Charlie looked around. She didn't remember much about the first couple of years here. She had been only 3 years old, and all the memories had failed through the burr of child grief and loss of not understanding why her mother had to go away, challenging to her father every moment, not trusting the world around her. Unless he was there, unless she was holding tightly to him. By buying herself in a flannel shirt, and she smelled of grease and the hot metal of him. The stairs led straight up to the front of her, but she did not move directly to them. Instead, she went into the living room where all the furniture was still in place. She had not really noticed it was a child, but the house was a little too large for the furniture. They had things were spared out, wind odor of filled space of coffee table too far from the couch. Easy chair too far across from the room to carry a conversation. There was a dark stain on the wooden floorboards near the center of the room. Charlie stepped around it quickly, went to the kitchen where the cupboards held only a few paces of paper and the dishes. Charlie had never felt a lack of anything as a child, but it seems now that the unnecessary emotion of the house was a sort of apology, the attempt of a man who had much to give his daughter. What he could have, he could. He always had a way of overdoing whatever he did. The last time she was here, the house had been dark and everything felt wrong. Carried up the stairs. Her bedroom, although she was 7 years old and could have gone quicker on her own 2 feet, but Aunt Junie had stopped on the front porch, picking her up and carry her slightly her fate as she was a baby in the grating sun. In her room, Aunt Julie set Charlie down and closed the bedroom door behind him. She told her to pick her suitcase, and Charlie had carried it before. All her things could never fell into that small case. We came back for the rest later. Aunt Junie said, her impact lacking through as Charlie hovered impatiently after a disaster, trying to decide which T-shirt to belong. They had never came back for the rest. Charlie mounted the stairs, heading to the old bedroom. The door was practically cracked as she opened it. In it, she had a gritty feeling of displacement, as though her younger self, imagined sitting among her toys, might look up and ask, Charlie, who are you? Charlie went in like the rest of the house. Her bedroom was untouched. The walls were peeling pink, and the ceiling, which was stopped on the side, following the line of the roof, was painted peeling, matching her old bed still stood around the wall, breathing a large window. The mattress was still intact through the sheets were gone. The sheets were gone. The window was cracked slightly. The open, rotting, Lance conscious whatever in the great breeze from outside. There was a dark water stain in the paint, breathing the window where the weather has gotten to it over. The years burying the house, nearing Charlie's clumber.
This automate actually came from Goodwill well before I met yours. Oh man, look at all that milk. $5. $5 fine. You know what? No real loss. Well worth $5 out of it, and it matched. It matched the furniture that's in there, but
And now
now it really matches the
it's got
furniture.
to go. There's just inches of mildew and mold on there. No bueno.
Oh, there's more coming.
Excuse me, sir. You
Yeah.
forgot your mask.
Okay. Well,
It's dangerous if they're inhaling all that
I already
stuff.
have